would like to take your thoughts on this. What exactly? And I just had to keep quiet and just think about it. I had to watch the video twice because the first time I saw it, I wasn't sure I saw the faces. I only saw his face, but I wasn't sure where he was. But then the first thing that caught my attention the second time was the microphone of a former station I used to work in, which was the State Media House, the TV and the radio. So I knew immediately it was in Calabar. And then I looked again at the faces of the people. I could recognize some of them. But the person who stood up in the video to say, "Oh, gentlemen, calm down," was the chief press secretary to the governor of the state. And that was what made me really angry. Not necessarily the man who was, throwing words at the journalist, because,
tirade,
I mean, this is very typical of a Fani Kayode. This is what he does on social media. He's fighting with everybody. So for me, it wasn't really new. But where I had problems was that it was a room full of journalists. Someone else could have taken up that question and rephrased it. I don't see anything wrong. Yes, he could have seen something wrong with how he framed the question, but somebody would have reframed that question. I mean, I was imagining myself in that room saying, maybe he didn't say it the right way, but we would like to know, former minister, how you would have monies of your own to fund this kind of expedition, because I call it an expedition. You're not part of the government of the day. You are in the opposition party, and one would want to know what the idea
is. A private citizen.
Exactly. So it would be normal for a journalist or any other person to try to find out who is funding this particular thing and what is the idea behind it. I don't think it was a clueless question or it was a stupid question, as he put it. I think it was just, I don't know who frustrated him that morning. He probably was having a bad day. I'm trying to, sincerely.
And that's very Nigerian terminology. Who frustrated you?
I mean, probably he woke up from the wrong side of his bed, but I was really embarrassed by the fact that we had a room full of journalists and they could not in any way take on this minister. They all froze, literally froze, and started apologizing. And I'm wondering, why do you apologize for doing your job?
Exactly. So there's conversation about those who are saying, "We're sorry, sir, sorry, sir." And apparently the journalist himself did apologize. He said he didn't necessarily apologize for the question. He just apologized that FFK took it in the manner in which he did. There are a number of other things as well. But you just get into respect for the situation. But we've seen videos emerge in the following days of this same former minister using the word stupid on a number of people or in a number of situations such as this. I was very happy to see that the NUJ came out with a strong statement. I was also very happy to see that the correspondent had the backing of his newspaper, Daily Trust. They came out with what I've seen as one of the most strongly worded statements in defense and in support of their journalists. And I think things like that are very important for journalists to know that their media organizations are standing.
Yeah, they're in total support of them, because we live in a country where it's very difficult for people to be backed up, especially journalists. Yeah. I mean, even as a private citizen, and you work in a company and you're standing up for your rights, sometimes you do it at your own peril. Nobody is necessarily going to back you. But I think that the reason why, this is my personal opinion, I think that the reason why Daily Trust put out that statement was because there was a public outcry. Maybe Fani Kayode did not see this coming. He probably thought it was one of those things he does and gets away with it. But then he was messing with the most sacred, permit me to use that word, office in the land. Let's forget about the presidency. We are we're the fourth estate of the realm, and we seem to be the ones asking the questions that nobody else wants to ask. And so people took it personal. And I think that there were people who said, or who could bet their bottom dollar that, look, Daily Trust was going to sack the man or reassign him. But I want to appreciate the power of Nigerians, because we were everywhere. We were screaming and we were kicking and we were saying this cannot happen. And for once, I think we all won.
And I think it is also a win. Journalism in Nigeria takes a hit a lot of the times. Of course, the allegations that the former minister rather, made in terms of journalists following brown envelopes, and that opens up to questions of credibility, questions of integrity, reputation issues as well. And we can't shy away from it as journalists, that those issues do exist. They exist.
Yes,
we see it. We see, unfortunately, the consequences of it for our communities and our societies. So we do ask our fellow colleagues and ourselves to constantly do better. Let's not turn a blind eye to that, but also acknowledge it. So it's good to see that we had and today he was in another state. So what we had is that the state chapter of the NUJ, which is the Nigerian Union of Journalists, the union overseeing journalists in Nigeria, has actually boycotted. They said they would not show up for the same press conference that was had. So he's in another state
I
now
was
on
very
another
happy.
tour. I'm very happy about that. I hope the next state, NUJ, does the same thing because there need to be consequences. There are different ways in which you can answer such questions. If he didn't want to answer, he can say, I don't have to answer. If you're saying that you were not bankrolled by somebody and this was your private initiative, come out with it. So Pablo was asking, are you two ever worried for your personal safety as journalists there? Mary Ann, have you ever faced a situation where you've been worried about your personal safety?
Well, this is a question I get asked all the time wherever I go, and I say, "Oh, I'm from Nigeria and I'm a journalist," and then they say, "Oh, so what's your bit?" And I say, "Politics." "Oh my God, have you ever gone to prison?" And I'm like, "Well, it's not so bad, but I used to work in the Niger Delta, and when you say the Niger Delta in Nigeria, everybody goes, ooh, militancy. And the politics in that part of the country is totally different from what you have here in Lagos or any other part of the country because um, they're more political than anywhere else. So they take it very personal. Someone can say, I know where you live, I'm coming for you, but we still work. It's the job of a journalist to,
Yeah.
keep your head down, don't be stupid, speak up when you have to, but then you need to, watch your back. It doesn't stop you from doing the job, but just, take
And
initiatives and
I'll say in answer to that question, there were times early on, especially when I first started with the talk radio station, we knew that we were being monitored at the highest level. I think Marianne, we hosted the same show in different cities.
yeah, we used to,
Um,
same show,
so I hosted Morning Crossfire in Lagos. She hosted Morning Crossfire in Rivers,
Port
and
Harcourt.
I for Harcourt, and I knew that we had people call. They didn't like certain conversations I was having on radio. They didn't like certain people I was inviting to radio. So yeah, every once in a while I was worried. I was worried that one day somebody's van would just drive into the station and be like, "This girl needs to go for questioning." So
Arrest
I
her.
won't lie. I'm not maybe going as far as arrest, but yes, I was worried that somebody would say I have some questions to come and answer. And
Yeah.
we can't, while it's better, you have the people like the International Press Center, and you have people like International Committee for the Protection of Journalists that tell you that things are hard for journalists in Nigeria. And it's very true. You have the cases of Abajalingo, Jones Abari, who spent 2 years in detention without seeing his lawyers, without seeing his family, without almost basically being charged with anything. So
With anything.
it's not 100%. I want to say cautiously that it's better than it used to be, but yes, journalists still feel fear for their lives. I remember Fisayo when he broke a story, a prison and customs story. I think that was about sometime last year, early this
Yeah.
year. He actually had to, go under the radar for a number of weeks so the heat would die down because the officials were looking for him. They wanted to know how he got in, how he got the information. So yeah, it's still a
It's
worry,
risky
especially for people
business,
who
but we have to do it.
who are on the deeper end of the investigative journalism side. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
so let's see what else we have. So he has issued somewhat of an apology. I don't want to take too much time with that, but I didn't find it to be an apology in any regard. I just thought it was just he was apologizing more to his personal friends in the media than he was to the person he actually verbally assaulted. Okay, so let's move
Yes.
on now. We have the NBA, which is Nigeria's national. I wanted to say bureau. You see, journalism is in my head. The NBA is the National Bar Association of Nigeria, and it's the umbrella body for all lawyers in Nigeria who have been called to the bar. So they recently did elections and they have a new leadership, but they also were holding their conference. And when it became
Mm.
public that they were inviting Nasser El Rufai, who is the governor of Kaduna State, there was an uproar on social media. Now, the uproar came about because, as some people would say, some of the comments of this governor about the crisis that's been happening in southern Kaduna, as well as some of the insecurity issues that have been happening in Kaduna as well. It got to a point where apparently the NEC, or a committee in charge of the invitees, had to uninvite the governor. And that has now caused more issues. But first, let's talk a bit about southern Kaduna. Marianne, I know you've spoken to one or two people in recent weeks about the situation, the insecurity in southern Kaduna. What are they saying?
Well, the first person I spoke about the crisis in Nigeria in general was a security expert and a researcher with the Tony Blair Institute in London, and he basically was talking about the security angle from a security personnel's angle. But then I spoke with a former Big Brother Nigeria star winner, and he's also a social activist and a movie producer. Who is actually from Kaduna State and has experienced these killings right from when he was 7 years old, apparently. So he was telling me that the situation gets worse, and it's not necessarily an El Rufai issue, but then there is El Rufai there as the governor. But then that the responses that they get from the government is not something that they would expect from a government which is not necessarily serving one ethnic group in that state. So the problem is that the governor seems to be from the ethnic group of the people who are killing people in southern Kaduna, and they expected better. There've been cries. In fact, I hear that they've gone as far as The Hague. They've gone as far as the United Nations. They, have been making calls to foreign governments to come to the aid of the people in southern Kaduna, because this was born out of initially, as the story goes, the people of southern Kaduna gave some part of their land to the Normans, the Fulanese who
the
were
visitors.
And they said, okay, you come here to do business with us. Why not, share some of our land? You can stay here. And then they grew and they spread. And then one day they woke up and said, look, we're many now. We want to be chiefs. We want to lead our people. And the people of southern Kaduna did not find that really welcoming. They said, look, we own this land. This is our land. Now you're our guest, but then you cannot decide to take our places. And so I think this is the genesis of the southern Kaduna killings. Now, the government has always said that, the killers are not necessarily Nigerians, they're outsiders.
They're coming from across the border.
Yes, and they give them all kinds of names. So one minute they're rustlers, the next minute they're bandits, So there's not necessarily a solution per se. And then there was a time where the governor decided that he was going to pay these so-called bandits to stop killing people. And this was not also welcomed by the people of southern Kaduna, because they think that the government should protect them but not come across as being weak. Because if I'm a guy who kills people for money and then you're offering me money, I'm going to kill more people so that you can give me more money.
Or exactly, I'll become more violent that you want to pay me more to stop the violence.
So people don't think that this was a clearly thought out plan by the governor of Kaduna State, and he's still under fire because of the kind of responses. Now, I have sat down, I've been opportunity to sit down with him in Government House in Kaduna, I think last year before the elections in May. And I asked him about the killings and some of the allegations, and he brushed it off as usual. And this is what he does at every interview. And he says, oh, these are naysayers. These are people who are trying to bring me down. This is bigger than El Rufai. Yes, we know that this is an issue that has been going on for years, but you are a smart guy. And this is why you were allowed to become governor, because they felt that you would be able to address the issue as someone who's smarter and more learned than all the other guys who've been governors. And let's not forget that a former vice president of this country has also been a governor of Kaduna State while these crises have been going on. So it seems like every time the people of southern Kaduna look up to someone to help them out of this, they seem to fail. So the question is, what exactly is the problem of southern Kaduna? Is it that they are too little? Are they so much of a minority that their problems have to be ignored? Because I've seen pictures, I've seen videos of children slaughtered in the middle of the night. I mean, they walked into a family house and slaughtered every single person for no just cause. But every time the people of southern Kaduna decide to have a reprisal attack, then it makes the news.
Yes, and then we get into conversations about terminology. It's a clash versus an attack and all of that. So now what happened was, once his name was announced that he was going to be a guest, and he was actually coming to speak on issues surrounding this settlership, this settler indigene issue. There's been a
Yeah.
conversation going on for many years in Nigeria about how you become a resident, how you become an indigent, how long you stay a settler. So that was really part of what the conversation he was meant to come and have. So there was a petition written, and people started tweeting at the NBA on social media and told them that they were withdrawing their registration and that they would not come. And it's interesting for me because I often think Nigerians really don't know the power of their voice. I think we should boycott more things more often, whether it's financial boycotts. I think we should withdraw our money from places and things that do not serve the common good, that are seen to be corrupt, that are seen to be damaging the common good. I think we should boycott events where people might be given platforms. This is a bit more dicey for me because there are those who are on the side of the conversation that he has not been allowed to tell his side of the story, but I don't agree with that. He's been doing media
He's had so many opportunities. I mean, I've seen
Exactly.
I mean, I don't know any other governor apart from Akwa Ibom State former governor who's been on TV more than El Rufai. He's always granting interviews on this issue. Unfortunately, he always has to talk about it.
Yeah.
But I think he's told his side of the story one too many times, but then it never adds up, and it's not necessarily enough to address the issue of Southern Kaduna. And hence the reason why the NBA decided to make this move. But I'm a bit on the fence about this move by the NBA because it is the NBA.
Exactly.
Now, if it was the NUJ or if it was the transporters or if it was anything else, we probably would have said, oh, well, that's solidarity. But because the judiciary is a powerful arm of government and is supposed to
be independent,
and not be biased in any way, I was hoping that maybe he would have been allowed to come, and then he would be made to answer questions, not just deliver a speech, but then he should be put on the spot instead of just, shoving him out. Because now I hear that the Muslim wing of the NBA in Kaduna State have also pulled out of the conference. So there's going to be, and that might just be Kaduna. There might also be Muslim, lawyers in other states in the federation who would say, look, we're not coming. This seems like an attack on our people. So I think that they would have been more strategic, more tactical. They would have been, maybe talk to other people. I'm looking for the best way to say it.
I think there's a lot of things we can say about the situation. How was he chosen to have this conversation given the ongoing situations surrounding Kaduna as well? So what you're talking about is that there is now the new NNBA that has come about as this because people have now turned this into ethnic and racial conversation and ethnic and racial,
as always in Nigeria. This is how it turns out.
And it will be interesting because the NBA was set up to cater to the needs of lawyers across the country. We can carpet them for how they've been doing, and we understand that this election has actually been an indictment of how the NBA has been dealing with lawyers' issues. That's why somebody who's not, I guess some would say, not part of the old guard actually became president. But we'll be we'll be seeing how this develops and everything because I think today is the last day, or maybe tomorrow is the last day, but it's a conversation that's ongoing. And they also said maybe other people that are on the list of invitees should also not be invited because of questions about how they themselves performed when they were in leadership. All right, so I say hello. Let me quickly say hello to Mark and to Brett, both of them joining us from Los Angeles. Thank you so much. Let me take a quick question. Somebody says Nigerian lawyers have been so quiet in the face of police brutality. Do they know they have a voice at all? And this is a very personal issue for me. I worked with some of the people who worked on the NSARS campaign. I've done things with Tech Gravel, one of the online social justice, and I've had conversations about awaiting trial prisoners. For some of you who don't know, the majority of those in prison in Nigeria are actually awaiting trial. So you can be in a Nigerian prison awaiting trial for 15, for 20 years. You will not face a court. You will not fully be charged. You will not have your day in court. You will not be found guilty or innocent, but your life will be languishing away in some jail in this country awaiting trial. And when you look at it, I'm sorry to say the judiciary is complicit in what is happening to create that situation. In terms of lawyers also not knowing whether or not they should be the voice of the people. It's again an indicator of how broken the system is in Nigeria. Marianne, what do you think?
Yeah, there's a saying in Nigeria that the judiciary is the last hope of the common man. But
Yeah,
unfortunately, in the past maybe 10 to 15 years, that's not necessarily been the case because half the time the judges, the guys on the bench, unfortunately, of questionable character. We saw what happened between 2018 and 2019 with the judges and monies found in their homes, guns, all kinds of things. So it
yeah,
makes the common person really wonder who's going to look out for him or her. Again, the police in the country they have taken advantage of the loopholes in our judiciary
yep.
to say, so a police officer can tell you in Nigeria, I'm going to lock you up, and there's nothing you can do
Nothing you can
about
do.
it
And
because
literally for
nobody's
the
going to
majority of
you'll never have your
Nigerians,
day in
it's true.
court,
Yeah,
unfortunately, and that's
yeah,
because our judiciary has failed. Now, every day we keep asking for police reforms, we're asking for reforms in other parts of the system, but we never really remember the judiciary finds a way to hide out,
yeah.
while we all are screaming about every other arm of government. The judiciary finds a way to stay underneath, but then they can't hide any longer because we have their dirty linen all washed out in public. So
Yeah.
now people need to start advocating for legal reforms. We need to restructure our judiciary, and we need to start from the bottom, from the magistrate court all the way up to
Yes.
the federal high court. There has to be some reforms. If these reforms don't take place, unfortunately, people are still going. I mean, I've gone to prisons. I did a report years ago, again, on police brutality, which led me to how people are being detained. And I went to certain places and I saw how people, I saw a guy who was there for more than 6 years and he had not had a day in court. What is his offense? Can you really tell if he committed it or not? So this is the situation. Now police officers can
Yeah.
just say, oh, somebody gave me money to deal with this guy, so he's going to be
Yeah.
there forever as long as I want him to be there. So they're playing judge, an executioner. So it's a crazy situation. Unfortunately, it's not as reported as we'd want it to be. So I
As
think
it
that us
should
as
be.
journalists, we
Yeah.
also need to keep pushing these stories to the front burner and prioritize it because you never know who ends up in those,
In that
detained.
prison. And
Yes.
it's a really scary thing. I have a few comments. Let me get to some of those. So Brett, thank you so much. He says that is surprising. Is there no constitutional protection for timely trial in Nigeria? Temi Tokwe, hi. Thank you so much for joining us. Mark, thank you so much for joining us as well. So to the issue of timely trial. So what you have is, I think the only timely trial written into the constitution is when you are adjudicating on an election panel. Those are the only ones that really have timelines, like 180 days, 150 days written. And even in some instances, those timelines are actually not, they're not adhered to. So there's really no constitutional protection for when a trial has to go. And yes, it does cause huge overcrowding. I remember about 2 years ago, the then Controller General of the Nigerian prison system, he complained about overcrowding, that a lot of the people were awaiting trial. He also complained about inmates on death row because the governors were refusing to sign the death warrants. That's something I spoke about in my last live. So they were not set up to carry. And a lot of these prisons are prisons that are very, very old. Some of them built during the time that the British were in Nigeria,
It's
haven't really been
despicable the
expanded
things that we
on.
see when we go there. It's
People don't
terrible.
have beds. People sleep on the. It's a horrific situation. And and the reason I say they're complicit is you have certain situations where you have magistrate courts, and maybe it's because I grew up in the US and you watch enough movies. There are certain cases that if the police or prosecution or the ADA or whoever takes it to a judge, the judge will look at it and throw it out, that they won't
Of
entertain it,
course.
and the person is free to
Of
go.
course.
Our judges really don't do that. They don't throw out
Well,
cases
we have.
like that. For a case,
Well,
it
let's not
happens, but it's
necessarily
not
throw away the
common.
baby with the bathwater, but
But
because
this
we have
bathwater is
some
very
judges, but they're
dirty.
just a tiny minority. Yes,
So
a
compared to the
few of them.
majority of judges that will sort of continue to listen to the prosecution's advice and continue, they will adjourn the cases, prosecutors will change, case files will be lost. And let's not also forget the fact about people being picked up in one jurisdiction, moved to another. There's really no such thing as you're entitled to one phone call really in Nigeria. There isn't. So family members just know that a family member has disappeared. Meanwhile, they could have been in jail in another state for years awaiting trial. We've had one or two stories of people who come home, and then some people are like, what am I going home to? My whole family thinks I'm dead. See, we can go on and on about this awaiting trial. I think we might have
I
to
mean, Nigeria's
have a
problems are like
particular conversation. Temitope is saying
yeah.
6 years. Temitope, 6 years is small. We know of people and have read
There
stories
are all kinds
of
of
people
stories.
who have
They
been
will break
awaiting
your
trial
heart.
more than that. It's something that really needs to be dealt with, whether it's the complicity with the judges and the magistrates and whoever and the police, but it needs reform because the common man is, as we, that's the terminology we use, the
And I
average
think I think I
Nigerian.
think we need to start pushing for
Yeah.
these reforms. You need to start with us because we're the ones who do the reporting and the digging, and we find out all of these ridiculous stories. So
But
yes,
you know the thing with us as Nigerian journalists is it's almost, I remember when Trump became president and all the controversies came to happen. It's like a controversy a day, almost like how you take a pill. There's there there's so many
you never run
stories.
out of what to talk
You
about,
you really
really.
never do, and because now the news cycle is this 24-hour, 7 day a week beast that just consumes everything. We, a lot of us miss out on connecting the dots and keeping the stories going and going back for the follow back or the follow through,
Yeah.
as it may be. Okay, I'm going to change the order. We'll quickly get to another governor, and this is a story I discussed on my last live, and that's this case of a man in Kano who has been condemned to death. He was given a death sentence for blasphemy. Now, the story comes back up. I know that he has an appeal, but we haven't really heard if he has decided to appeal the case or not. Now, the story comes back up because the governor in the state, who's meant to sign his death warrant, says he will sign the death warrant in 30 days. 30 days. So, why is that interesting? It's interesting because this is also a governor that was caught on video, and the video was released, I think, about 2 years ago, showing him pocketing about $230,000. He was putting it in his pocket. The video, there was no sound to the video, but the media organization that released the video talked about this was part of a sting operation that they had had in order to catch the governor actually, collecting bribes. And for people out there, you'll be surprised, but this governor won re-election. The video came out before the election. He won re-election. Then his party actually gave him a national assignment. I think that involves Edo State, something for one of the other states. So it seemed like, yes, he has
Let's not also forget
immunity.
that he got an award also.
Yes, he got an award. And yes, I have to say he does have immunity from prosecution during the time he's governor. But many people right now on social media are talking about the moral justification for him to come out and say that he will sign the death warrant in 30 days for this man who committed blasphemy. And yet he's sitting on the leadership of the state and he was caught on video stuffing dollars into his outfit. Marianne, what do you make of this? Because there's a serious divide on, quote unquote, as we call it, Arawa Twitter, particularly in regards to this case.
Well, I really do have a lot to say about Ganduje because I hope I don't get into trouble.
I thought about that.
But I mean, everybody saw, the whole world, if not
Yeah.
the whole world saw that video. But you see, what intrigues me the most is the part that he said the video was doctored. That couldn't possibly be him in that video.
And that he was going to sue. No lawsuit has ever
And
come out.
we're still waiting, by the way.
And we haven't seen a
for him
report
to-
from his own forensic analyst.
Exactly. So, for me, it totally it makes a mess of what we call a country, Nigeria. It totally makes a mess of everything: the system, our politics, our constitution, our policing, every single thing. It makes a mess of it because it took a bomb or whatever that happened in Beirut to make a
To
whole
see the
government literally say, you know what,
resignation,
we're going to bow out.
Yeah.
It took it's very little things. It could even be something as easy as an allegation that is not necessarily verified for somebody to say, you know what, I'm going to step aside and let justice take its course, and if I'm not found guilty, I would be glad to come back and serve my people. That never happens in Nigeria. We have no morals in this country, unfortunately. I'm a Nigerian, so it means that it paints a bad picture of me too, but
Yeah.
the issue of Ganduje was never addressed. So I'm wondering why anybody would hope that anything good would come out from a Ganduje or his government. Now, unfortunately, I'll tell you what, Ganduje is going to get more followers. He's going to be
For this
applauded
decision. He's
for this
already been
decision.
applauded.
He's going
Yeah.
to become a messiah of sorts for the
Yeah.
people who are followers of that particular Sharia law. Unfortunately for us as a country. But the problem I've always had with these double standards that we have in the country, permit me to
Yeah.
use that word, is that we're supposed to be a secular country where one constitution is supposed to supersede every other law, whatever act, whatever thing that, bill of rights, whatever it is.
Customary law there
Whatever
may be.
it is, they come under the constitution. But unfortunately, in Nigeria, the Sharia law has its own powers and you cannot contest it, unfortunately. So it makes me wonder if our constitution is really powerful. And don't forget, in Nigeria, we have so many laws that I've even lost count. Sometimes you have to go back and dig and say, oh yeah, we have this law, but we're not using it. So what's happening? So I do not expect, I don't want to go deep into it, but I do not expect anything to happen. There's not going to be any change of heart. There have been so many death penalties that have been signed, but none of them have really, really been enforced. So again, I'm not really hopeful that anything would happen to this young man, but I'm hoping that something would happen in his case to change the course of things. What would happen, I do not know, but I'm hoping that something can happen because we're in 2020. We're no longer living in the Stone Age.
Century.
We're not living in
the Industrial Revolution.
I'm trying to understand. Even in Jesus' days, where people were being stoned, at some point Jesus had to bring a change from the stories we read about the woman who was going to be stoned for sleeping with a person, and then Jesus asked, "If you have not done this, or you have no sin, okay, go ahead and cast a stone." So I'm just wondering why we're still using these archaic Sharia laws in the 21st century, especially in a country that is secular.
But not in defense, but also in context. There are a lot of laws on Nigerian books that are holdovers from the British times, from British colonial times. And certainly. I remember last year when Rwanda particularly said they were going to go through all their laws, go through all the proclamations and all the decrees, even the ones all the way back to colonial times, and look for what was fit for purpose, and get rid of what was not fit for purpose and what no longer had a place. Nigeria has a lot of archaic laws. It's when people in power particularly want to use those laws against others that a law exists or a law.
There's always an agenda.
And of course, with the Sharia situation, the Nigerian constitution should supersede, but it's also in the Nigerian constitution of death penalty for blasphemy as well. But beyond that, there's also conversation happening on Iowa, Twitter, and other places about how Sharia law doesn't really affect the people at the higher levels of society, that it's for the common Muslim, it's for the common man. So
I think that's also detailed for the general Nigerian law. Exactly. The constitution of Nigeria is only for the lowly man, the person who has no powers. You remember in Nigeria, we are the people who say, do you know who I am? So it doesn't work for those people who say, So if you're not a do you know who I am person, best be assured that you're going to jail. So it's quite unfortunate. And this is why, again, I'm going back to let's ask for legal reform. Something has to give. We can't keep on hoping that something good will come out of the same old that we've been, trying to get by with. It's not going to happen, and we need to put our foot down. Let me just be a little biased and go back to the Jonathan administration. There was a supposed constitutional conference that never saw the light of day because the opposition said, oh, we were not part of it, and so it's not going to hold water. Even though some of the recommendations were interesting, although some of them were ridiculous, but most of them were going to help us go forward as a country. But where is it? It's in the dustbin somewhere.
But even the same government or the same party that's in power now, they did one headed by El Rufai, as it was in the first term of the president also. I think that had about 10 or 14 things that they suggested in terms of state police. We don't have a state police system in Nigeria. Police are controlled from the capital, Abuja. There are commissioners in states. And so it can delay action. It's just, you really don't, unless you get a directive from Abuja, certain things don't happen. So it delays justice, it delays action. So they've also done some kind of recommendations in terms of what could be done, but those haven't seen the light of day. Let me say hi to Faith. Chrissy as well as Lucia from Santo Domingo. Thank you so much for joining us. Mark has a question. He says, "Is Nigeria experiencing protests like we are currently seeing in the U.S. to demand civil justice reforms?" Do you want to laugh, or do I, or do you want me to laugh?
Okay, I didn't want to laugh, but
Mark,
you made me laugh.
the answer to that question is no. And
Yes and no.
it's a multi-layered conversation with us, because I like when anytime we have this conversation about protest and standing up to authority, I always want to remind people that Nigeria and many of the ethnicities in Nigeria and cultures in Nigeria do not, it's not a cultural thing to stand up to authority. It's not a
We're
cultural thing
naturally
when
not
you
allowed
stand.
to question authority,
You're not
naturally.
allowed to question people who are older than you, your parents, people in certain positions in the society. So as people grow and they haven't been able to question, how do you expect them to become adults and then all of a sudden start questioning authority? So I always remember that. But Marianne, you spoke to somebody who's been very mad with the Nigerian youth and says they're not doing anything about the things that are wrong. So I'll let Marianne finish answering that question.
So, 2 days ago, I interviewed a famous Nigerian musician and social activist, Charlie Boy, whose father used to be an attorney, a very famous one. Um, and he's one of those people who has been advocating, that young people step up to the plate, take on
Yeah.
responsibilities, ask for accountability. He's always on their cases saying, look, I'm ashamed of you guys because I'm old. He's 70 and he's
Yeah.
still on the streets trying to call on young people. Like, he's old enough to be resting. But he's saying, look, young
He's a
people, you're not taking the
grandfather.
responsibility. I
Yeah.
have young children. What kind of future are you going to inherit if you can't step up to the plate today? Now, this is the problem I have with Nigerians in general, whether young or old. We do not have a staying power. So
Yeah.
we protest for 2, 3 days and then we're hungry. Make I go chop Gary, I beg. I don't tire.
But
Nobody
but
make you
but
Jesus.
you have to explain why we're hungry. We're hungry because the majority of people live in poverty, so they're not able to stockpile food
Who caused that
for a
poverty? So this is the
larger.
problem. I'm
It's a
sorry.
chicken and
The
egg.
excuses that
It's a
we have
chicken
are
and
not good
egg.
enough. I'm sorry,
Oh,
Tolu. The excuses we have are not good enough. I'm sorry. It took a tired person to start the Arab Spring. He was a hungry
yeah.
man. We have no excuse. Nigerians are very complacent. You push them to the wall, they create spaces in the wall, and then they just keep
And then
going.
go further.
And so our politicians have over time realized that
They've
this is
taken
who we
advantage.
are, and so they're taking advantage of it. And so they say, we'll spin the stories next thing. The next thing, there's another story. So while you're still trying to address this one, they've dropped another. So you
Yeah.
become so tired that you just say, you know what, we resign to fate, to your 10-year-old Nigerians. And this is the problem. We need to do away with that mentality. We go to other countries or we speak about other countries. We're quick to say, oh, the US, oh, the US. The US,
Yeah.
the people
Yeah.
there, look at what's happening in, is it Louisiana or one of those states? The people have a
Jacob
staying
Blake. Yeah.
power. They're there in the streets and they're saying they're not going anywhere. This is what Hong Kong did. This is what is it Belarus? This
Yes,
is what's
Belarus. Yeah.
happening. This is what's happening across the world. We comment on these things, but if you tell an average Nigerian, oh yeah, you're looking for a hero, yeah, you be the hero. And oh yeah, for those of you who are not Nigerians, oh yeah means more like come on.
Oh yeah, let's go. Vamos,
Let's
vámonos,
go.
vámonos.
So it's like ale, 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 ale. So
Yeah.
if you say let's go and face these people and tell them what we want, you will show up alone, all by yourself. So we
But
need to start.
Mary Ann, I agree with you, but I want the context. I'm always contextual in this. So let's take a US, for example. A lot of these things are recorded. It's very likely that there's going to be some kind of civil or criminal lawsuit. There's some kind of medical health system in play, you understand? And again, it's not an excuse because it gets to a point where people are walking around like they're already dead in many situations, you know. But you also have to consider the average Nigerian facing off against the military, facing off against the police, a police
Oh
officer that's
no,
also
no, 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 not
hungry.
the military,
Wait,
please.
wait. A police officer who's also hungry, but he's on the side of the people who give him the peanuts. He's not on the side of the public that can make life better for him. So
Yeah.
the context is there, and I think it's just an overwhelming burden that is placed. And I understand where people like Charlie Boy are coming from, but I also think they need to give allowance. But now the allowance is done. Maternal mortality, very, very, very poor. I think we're in the top 3 or the top 5 in the world. One of the worst places to be a female in the world in Nigeria. Educational standards down, health standards down. We heard some
Zero.
good news this week, and that's because the African continent is going to get polio-free certification. Nigeria was the last holdout. I think it
I'm
was
so
us and
happy.
Pakistan or
Very
Afghanistan, and that
happy.
was done. So there hasn't been a case in how many years. So the continent is going to get its polio-free certification. But that's one good news that took years out of a drudgery of bad stories.
Yeah,
So
and
there
we
has
have
to
to
be
give
some
credit to
allowance to
Rotary.
give
Rotary
the people.
International has worked tirelessly in Nigeria to end polio. It's been like their number one priority. So let's give the kudos to them because they worked tirelessly to make that happen.
I, I don't know what to say. I think we'll have to keep talking about it. And I think I've told many people that the day there is some form of maybe it's revolution or some kind of uprising, the people who are at the top and when they see the numbers, they're going to be surprised because they've done
Oh,
everything.
they'll take
They've
flight.
done everything to the average Nigerian. And when they find out what it is that causes that thing, they'll say, is it this small thing? Because they've done everything. A governor caught on video stuffing $230,000 into his pocket. They've done everything to the average Nigerian. And when they see that small thing that causes whatever it is, everybody's going to ask, this thing is what the people
Is
are
that
really upset
really
about?
it? But then,
Is
of
this
course, it's
really
going to
it?
be mountains and mountains
Accumulation of
of,
things, yeah.
yeah, it's
Okay, I know
crazy.
people are enjoying because I'm really enjoying this conversation as well. But we have one final story. But let me just round up on the Ganduje thing. So as I told them in my last live, the man who has been sentenced to death has 30 days from that sentence to appeal the judgment. And what the governor is saying is that after that 30-day period, if he doesn't appeal, he will sign the death warrant. He has a number of people who are applauding him for signing the death warrant. They find this blasphemy to be a very insultive to the Holy Prophet and to Islam as well. But there's also conversation going, is it death for blasphemy? And then who's the person signing the death warrant? So that conversation will continue, and I'll probably have more stories on my timeline about it. All right, so finally, we're going to go to something that is a bit lighter to round things up and concerns COVID. So the lockdown has affected a lot of things, but restaurants have reopened for dining, churches reopened, and mosques reopened about 2 weeks ago. I don't even know what to say. A lot more people are walking around without their mask. I think it's a lot of
I
Nigerians
think they
don't
think
believe
it's
that COVID.
over.
I don't know. I don't know what else to say. So there is one segment of our industry that has not opened, and that's cinemas. And so there is a hashtag called hashtag Save Cinemas that has been going around. Filmmakers, actors, people in the entertainment industry are calling on the government to open the cinemas back. They say they don't understand why the cinemas are not open. They contribute to the economy. They bring in jobs. I think we're the second or the third largest filmmaking industry across the world.
Third.
Bollywood, Hollywood, Nigeria, and it employs thousands of people, brings in billions of naira in revenue, and they're not reopened. What do you think about the hashtag? Did we need to get here? Should they have reopened when restaurants reopened? What do you think, Marianne?
Ooh, I hope I don't lose my Nollywood friends for this one.
No,
um,
you cannot tell me. Okay, tell me
so
what you
this is
think
it.
first.
I'm one of those people who think that we need to do these things. We should take it easy.
In stages.
Yes, we have to do them in phases, whether we like it or not. Now, even the churches, I'm still a bit skeptical about. I mean, I'm never going to show up in church till maybe December. That's how paranoid
You're not
I
seeing
am.
me until next year.
Exactly. And I feel like because in Nigeria, a lot of people still take things very lightly, and we're the kind of
Yeah.
people that once you give us, you know, a centimeter, we take, everything. So I feel like cinemas have more people because people are bored. People want to go out. Will they be able to handle the number of people coming into the cinemas at once? Can you really say, look, we're going to mark these seats in a way that, I mean, I know how it is in Nigeria. You could do it anywhere else. You could tell people to, walk on a straight line. They would do it. Maybe at the airports, people are doing that. But at the cinemas, can you really control it? Can you
But are the
control it? You have,
churches even controlling it? So one of our colleagues
and
went
that's
out
why I
when the
said that's why I started
churches.
by saying that I'm also skeptical about opening churches. And let's not forget, nightclubs are not opened yet because you can't control the staff.
Eh?
Um,
Nigerians and nightclubs. No, 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 no. Especially
exactly.
Lagosians. Don't open.
So for me, I see a cinema as a nightclub. Unfortunately, no matter how you decide that, oh, we're going to have social distancing, how do you do it? By the time you screen 10, 15 people to come in, the movie has started.
So why not?
You
But
need to
we've seen
consider all
these.
of those things.
But we've seen the cinema industry grow by leaps and bounds. People are able to you're able to purchase your tickets online. So continue to do that. No one should come up to the counter to buy the ticket. You shouldn't even be able to enter the mall. So your tickets must be purchased online. And once the number of tickets for, if a hall has 150, once you've purchased maybe 60, 65, that closes. And it's only the people with tickets who come. So what they've said is that about over 5,000 jobs may be lost. They've
Yeah,
lost
maybe.
about 22.5 billion naira. That's about $50 million since the closure. And let's not also forget that the cinema industry in Nigeria has really made leaps and bounds. We're
Yes, they
doing
have.
IMAX,
Yes,
we're
they have.
doing ID something, IMAX 4, IMAX 5. I don't even know. They've invested in really bringing about a
Yes, they
better
have.
movie going experience. And this is not the time. So I understand their argument. If you reopen churches, let me tell you, how do the churches choose who goes in? It's first come, first serve. But before you get inside, are you guys not mingling at the parking lot? Are you not
I tell you
mingling at
what,
the
a
door
lot of churches have still not
before churches
resumed.
are told you're
A lot of
and I'm
churches have
happy
not
for that.
resumed. The
And I'm
big
happy for
churches
that
have,
because they know they can't
yeah,
control it.
because they need to figure it out. Let's not be sentimental about it. They need to figure it out, especially the churches that have so many people, and then the parking lots, you have to, sandwich yourselves. They have to think about it. And I also feel that the NCDC in Nigeria are a bit overwhelmed. The Lagos state government is really overwhelmed. So they want to handle one bit after the other. I understand, the Nollywood stars. I understand their plight. But I think in other countries, I was talking to my friend in Brazil, and she was saying that, look, the only cinema you can go to right now is the one that you sit in your car to watch. Maybe we can come up with these ideas
No, it's
and
here.
have open spaces.
There are drive-in cinemas. I even was thinking
So
of
why
going
can't
to
we?
one, but the movies they have are old movies. I didn't want the old movies. I even saw the one they want to open in London on the river. You're in a boat. The boat holds no more than four. They'll bring the snacks that you order to you. So there is a drive-in. I think it's one or maybe two, but I do know there is a drive-in cinema in Lagos. But I
So
think
so so so
it's
so let's
balancing the
just
conversation on the
yeah.
economy and what is. A lot of people don't think corona is the way it is in the West in Nigeria. Some people don't even think coronavirus exists at all. A lot of people have resumed their normal activities. Even if people
Like
are
nothing happened.
wearing masks, people are wearing masks here. So
Hmm.
that's a whole part of the conversation as well. We haven't heard anything from the government in terms of whether or not they've heard them and they're going to consider, because the Cinema Owners Association has said they've come together and they have 10 guidelines on how to reopen, about social physical distancing, checks, and things like that. I think we should hear them out. I think we
Well, I
should
think they
hear
should
them
channel that
out.
energy to bring out better and more interesting new movies in the drive-in cinemas. They should have more drive-in cinemas. We have many open spaces in Nigeria. Let's leverage on
Spaces,
that for
yeah.
now, because the truth is, if we cannot strategically plan and actualize these things, we're going to have a second outbreak on our hands, and it's going to be worse. It's going to be worse. Let's be grateful that we've been able to keep the numbers little. Once we have
Are
one
the numbers
breakout in
really
two, three
little? We're
cinemas,
not testing for
well, I
the
mean,
size of our
we are
population and
testing.
looking.
Oh yes, we
We're
are
not testing
testing.
enough. Marianne, we're not testing enough.
Well,
For the
yes,
size of our
enough, but we are
population, the number
testing.
of tests, and then look at what South Africa is doing. We're not testing enough. We may be testing, but we're not testing enough. We're
Yeah,
not
and
testing.
that's another aspect of, testing and tracing that we need to look into. But
Yeah.
in the meantime,
Yeah.
like I said, I think the NCDC is really overwhelmed. And in terms of testing, it's just the FCT and Lagos that's really, really
That are
testing.
doing it of their own power rather
Exactly.
than waiting. That's
The
true.
rest are just for
Okay.
people who fall ill and come into the hospitals, that's basically it. So there's a lot that needs to be done, really. So let's not be in
So
a hurry.
while we're here talking about Nollywood, somebody is asking us about Bollywood. Marianne, do you like Bollywood?
Never. I mean, they're
What?
good. They're amazing. They're really good. I mean.
So okay, so honest for me, I do like some of Bollywood, but I think I like my favorite Bollywood movie has to be Kabhi Kush Kabhi Gone. Oh my goodness.
No,
I
I
can't
think
even
it's
tell you guys.
Kuchi Kuchi
Kuchi
Hoktahe.
Kai
That's the only one I've ever
yes.
seen, and I loved it. Yeah.
So we do
But
know a
I'm
few
not a big
Bollywood
fan.
movies, and it's very big here. There's a channel
I'm not a
called
big
Zee
fan.
World on our, I guess,
My
our
mother
satellite
watches that every
provider.
other day. Oh my
It's
God.
a lot of homes have that satellite provider because of Zee World. So it's actually very popular here. It's really popular in the north. Because I
Yeah.
think there are some similarities between the cultures as well. Hello, Jerry
Yeah.
from Leon. Thank you so much. We've
Hi,
had, I hope,
Jerry.
some interesting convos. So like we have MX4D, IMAX, 4DX. There's a lot of investments in the entertainment industry, and it really is Nigeria's biggest earner. I think after agriculture, biggest employer as well. It has been successful, and I use these two words. It has been successful in spite and despite government, because
Yes.
our government
Yes.
hasn't really helped, and in some ways, unfortunately, our government can be a stumbling blocks to certain things. So, in spite of and despite government, Nollywood and the music industry has been really, really successful in being a cultural ambassador. I think it is for Nigeria. One of our biggest exports right now is Burna Boy. His new album, Twice as Tall, is massive. He has collaborations with Sam Smith, Chris Martin, I think, from Coldplay as well. He did stuff with a number of people. I think he was on this Beyonce
He's an
album
amazing
that
guy.
just
I
came
haven't really
out.
taken time to listen to the album, so I'm just smiling.
Exactly.
So I don't,
I haven't
I
listened
don't
to it as
embarrass
well,
myself.
but let me plug some good things. I remember former U.S. President Barack Obama, when he would release his summer jams list, there would be some Nigerian
Yeah, he included
artists,
Burna
and
Boy.
Nigerians
Yeah.
would be like, yes, he listened to Burna Boy, he listened to Rema. I think he heard Zlatan at one point in time as well.
Oh
So
my
those
God.
things are good. And
Yeah.
entertainment has really been a really good cultural ambassador, employer of labor. It has done a lot for Nigerians.
Yes,
So
it
I can
has.
understand where they're coming from. And I don't know, because literally it almost feels like the whole economy is almost reopened. Schools, definitely not, but it almost feels like not fully, there's never going to be a normal after this. It's a new normal
Yeah.
already, but almost to the point of the new normal.
Yeah, I think we need to really be careful. Let's not be sentimental about it. Like I said earlier on, we have to be very strategic. And that's what Brett Walker here is saying, that
Mm.
there's a new COVID study, which I heard, I think 2 weeks ago, about the fact that it hangs in the air indoors. So you have to be really
Yes, yes.
careful. So,
Brett just mentioned that as well, that it stays
yes,
in the indoors. And the thing is, you can get tested today for the coronavirus, and the test as of today will come back negative, and you can catch it 2 days from now. So I
exactly. So
do
we
I
have
do
to.
get those concerns. I get those
And
concerns.
like I said, Nollywood should think of creative ways to make. I mean, people are bored; they will come out. Nigerians, we like,
We like
anything that is
Faji.
outgoing. Yes, we like
Faji is
party.
party. We like hanging out. We're very social
Yes, so
people.
exactly. So
We're
somebody's saying
very
that we should
social.
speak Nigerian. This is so funny. We've been speaking Nigerian
Okay,
the whole
so
day.
let's start with this. There's no one Nigerian language. I'm from the Yoruba ethnicity. Mary Ann is Igbo, so we speak two different quote
I'm
unquote
epic.
local languages, our mother tongues. Why do I think you're Igbo? I'm so sorry, my darling.
I'm epic. I'm
We're two
from
different
the
ethnicities.
South South.
The only thing I could say might be Nigerian is pidgin. And
Yeah,
that's so we have a form
across
of pidgin
board.
that, yes, except for the Wafi one, that their own is a completely different level. And I
Out of this
speak
world.
no pidgin. But we can teach you
Yeah.
a bit of pidgin, and then maybe Marianne will teach you a bit of Igbo. So the only pidgin I'm really very
Epic,
good at is,
Tolu. Hey.
she's gonna make me pay for dinner. I'm so sorry. Mary Ann will teach you a bit of Efik, and then I'll teach you a bit of Yoruba. But my pidgin goes as far as saying how you day. So how you day is just, it's just remixing how are you. So how you day is how are you, basically. I don't know,
Yeah, I mean,
Mary Ann.
pigeon is. I think that's the first thing anybody picks up when you come to Nigeria. How far now? How far now is more
How
like what's
far? How you
up?
day now, my
How far
guy?
now?
Waiting day,
Eh.
waiting day.
What's the shelle?
No shalaye, no shalaye for me, no shalaye.
Always resist the urge.
Shalaye. All right, so Marianne, what do you want to say in Epic so we can go? Because I think this has been longer than I
Okay.
expected, but I've enjoyed myself.
Yeah, it's been fun. So I think anybody who knows the Calabar people or the ethics, the first thing that they say they learn is Didi Ankwa, which is come and eat, because we always give you food. We're very hospitable.
And
We
their
cook
and
the
no,
best
their
soup.
food,
I know.
seafood and everything. They're really, really good with seafood food. I love fisherman soup. The first time I had fisherman soup in Calabar, I was like, oh wow, this is what I've been missing. My eyes were big.
So everybody, Didi Ampo, there's food.
Come and eat. What would I say?
Yeah.
What should I say? I don't even know. Yoruba people were very social people. We can greet you 5,000 times. If we pass you
yes.
5,000 times on the same seat, we can say the same greeting. Ekujoko. Ekujoko is just basically saying like, okay, you're sitting down, I see you. It's difficult to translate literally. The literal translation would be well done for sitting down, basically.
Yeah.
Almost.
Oh my God, it sounds really funny, but that's what it means.
It does. So basically, I would be saying, okay, I see you and I'm greeting you. So for all of you who have basically stayed with us through this live, I'll say this, Eshe, thank you very much. Eshe Pupo, thank you very, very much for joining my live. Marianne Ocone is also on the HAPS platform, so please don't forget to follow her. She'll be sharing some interesting content as well. She'll be joining me a lot for these lives. We talked about journalism in Nigeria, 2 governors causing controversy. We talked about Save the Cinemas as well. So it's really been fun. So Marianne, thank you so much for joining me. I look forward to seeing you.
It's been a pleasure
as well. Thank you to everybody who has joined the conversation. If you have questions, please ask them of me or ask them of Marianne. If you want follow-ups on some stories that we talked about, just let us know, and we'll make sure that when there's any updates, we can also let you have those updates and you're up to date with it. I think this is about 1 hour. Wow.
Yeah, it was really good. Thank you for having me. It was a very interesting conversation.
Yes, it was. Wow. And I'm very sure if you follow us consistently, very soon you'll pick up a few
you start speaking some Nigerian
terms, you know. All right, guys, from our side, it's like 9 p.m. here. I'll say good night. I think it's still early evening for you guys. Thank you so much, or late afternoon. Thank you so much for joining me. I'm on HAPS at Tolulope AB, so please do join the conversation. We look to have more conversations coming to you from Lagos, Nigeria. And I have somebody joining me from South Africa next week. You don't want to miss that. We're going to talk about sexual and gender-based violence. It's a very big issue in South Africa and Nigeria as well. And then just look at the COVID response happening in South Africa. So please make sure you tune in for that. Thank you. Have a good day and have a good night.
Bye. Thank you for having me.
Thank you, Marianne. Bye-bye.